For our final technique this week, we are going to discuss gathering. So gathering, of course, is when we bunch up the fabric for a nice, pretty full skirt, for instance, and we're going to use a combination of basting, back stitching, and a technique of pulling the fabric together. So what we're going to do is start at the top, and we're going to give ourselves a little back stitch to start. Stop. We are going to lengthen our stitch. We're using a straight stitch, so there's no width at 0. And the length of our stitch, we're going to go from 2.5 up to 5. So a very long stitch length. And then we're going to run that all the way across. And then when we get to our stopping point, do not backstitch. Lift our needle with our hand wheel, lift our presser foot, and we are going to cut the top thread a little bit shorter, but not down at our stitching, and the bobbin thread longer. The bobbin thread is easier to pull in the gathering technique, and so that's why we want to leave the bobbin thread longer so we can remember which one is which. Now, we're going to go back to the start, because in good gathering, the best technique is to put 2 lines of stitching. So we're going to go back right below, maybe 1/8 to 1/4 inch below our original stitching, and we are again going to lower our stitch length back to 2.5, lower our presser foot, do a few back stitches to keep it in place, because we don't want the thread to pull out. We want it to stay locked at the end and scoot the fabric towards it. I'll show you in a minute. Now we're going to go back up to stitch length of 5, and careful not to stitch over our original line. Both of these lines need to be parallel and not to cross over each other, or we will not be able to gather the fabric. So just carefully stitch along, but not crossing over our original line of stitching. Now when we get to the same end point, again, we're going to lift our needle, lift our presser foot, cut our top thread shorter, and our bobbin thread longer. So this is what we have now. And you can see our nice long bobbin threads in the back. You can almost see that the fabric is almost starting to want to gather itself. Now we are going to hold on to our 2 bobbin threads in the back and gently massage the fabric down toward our back stitching and make it as gathered tightly or as loosely as we like. And then what I like to do, once I'm done, is press it into place and see what it looks like. That makes it easier to see. Beautiful. And then our last step is to knot these 2 threads together. So we're just going to tie a simple shoelace knot to keep those threads from unraveling or ungathering. 1 knot and a second knot. There we go. And I like to leave these threads relatively long until I connect this piece to, say, a waistband. If this was a skirt and we were gathering for a skirt, we want to leave these threads long for a little while because we may need some adjustment. We may need to spread out the gathers or make them tighter. And so until the garment is, this piece is attached to the other pieces to create the garment, I like to leave myself a little bit of room just in case. So that is it. Perfect. That is the final technique. Now for the practical, we want to use some sample garments or just test clothing and practice seam ripping out seams and putting those seams back in using the 4 basic stitches that we talked about earlier: straight stitch, back stitch, zigzag, or bar tack, and see if we can put those seams back just like they were in the beginning. Thank you so much. Good luck.